everybody, man. I got a smooth dude on the channel today. Oh my God, let me tell you something. He got his tie on, he ready. Watch, you're gonna see this. You're gonna feel this brother that come on this channel today. And he's got a very interesting story about a very interesting guy who is so interesting, there's a museum in his honor. Watch this. You're going to like this. This is going to be good. Hit that dog. Did I tell you I'm Anthony Brogdon? I'm so excited. I forgot who I am. But you know who I am. Y'all been watching me. I can feel you. Yeah, I get these comments every now and then. Man, that was a pretty good interview, man. You asked some pretty good questions. I was like, really? I like that. So keep them coming. You know, it inspires me, you know, because I'm going to do it anyway. But you know how it is. We all like to be, you know, let's call it stroked a little bit. Let's call it that, right? And so hit that subscribe button on Strong Inspirations. My numbers is up. Hit the like button on this video. You're going to like it a lot. Watch. He's going to tell it to you eloquently, succinctly, and hit the notifications bell for when the videos come up. Because I try to do at least 4 videos a week, so on and so forth. And tell somebody about Strong Inspirations. Don't keep it to yourself. Let me tell you something. And this is tripped out right here. I was somewhere and I heard a guy, and I knew the guy, but I didn't know him that well. And he was sitting at a coffee shop and he was watching one of the videos. Oh my God. He didn't know I was coming in. And he looked, I knew him, you know, just so, and he looked, he said, man, that's you in the video. I'm watching your video right now. Man, can you imagine that blew my mind? I'm an ordinary guy trying to do something special. So how about this? Since I got your attention, folks, I tell you what, do me another favor. And I don't say this often, but you know, watching this is free. So if you're so inclined, make a donation. How about that? So I can, you know, because I spend time on it, make a donation. I don't care if it's $2, but you know, I help with the gas money and so on. So, and you know, all the other things I do. So it's just a thought. And go to my website, businessintheblack.net. Now, did you watch the video? And this is kind of on the topic what my man is talking about, where the guy is at the Tuskegee National Airmen Park, and he talks about the Tuskegee Airmen and the red tails, and he tells it of what the real story was. Because you know, them guys that was flying the airplanes, they get all the acclaim. But man, you gotta believe there was a bunch of people, gotta fix the planes, gotta feed the people, gotta house the people. He tells all them are Tuskegee folk, and how it became a part of the Tuskegee Institute and why they did it there, because they was very well prepared. So watch that video. Did you see the one I did with the lady that talks about Black people who went to Asia back in the day? I'm flipping around. I was giving y'all a little bit of general. Watch that video. Did you see the one I did with the guy that talked about Black people and what they did in World War II? How that helped elevate the Black community? Because now we got jobs, you gotta pay us. You can discriminate some, but you know, lives on the line, so you can't discriminate a lot. Watch that video. Oh, we jamming here, and you're gonna really, really, really like this one with this guy here. You're gonna really like this one. And so all of them are on the channel. If you might know, I got a movie out. This is how serious I am. I took this to 40 cities across America, and on my own dime, and showed it. I rented theaters because I didn't know that there were slaves who owned businesses. I must have slept on that class. They didn't tell me that, because that would have blew my mind. I name them in my movie. It's streaming on Amazon, and I wrote the book, and it's in my book. I tell you what they did, how much money they made, how they bought their freedom. I even got one guy who he had enough money to buy his freedom. He's shoe shine man, what have you. He said, man, I don't need, you know, my man ain't beating on me. So I ain't buying my freedom, because if I do, I gotta leave. You got a year to stay or something like that was the policy. He said, I don't need to go nowhere. And he didn't. And I cite him in my book and so much more. So all this you can learn about me on businessintheblack.net. Now, you hear me use this term strong a lot. Strong is my favorite word. I kind of wish my middle name was Strong. I came up with Strong a bunch of years ago, and it's my mantra, let's say. And Strong stands for strength, tenacity, resilience, and a sense of oneness, stability, and grace. And that's my introduction to my guest today. He's a strong soul brother out of his community. Everybody admires him for what he's doing and what he has done. No doubt about it. And I'm excited that he's come on this channel. So would you introduce yourself? Let's get it on. Thank you for being on Strong Inspirations.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I sure appreciate the introduction. I appreciate the fact that you are on here doing your thing here. And the subject matter that you have on this channel is awesome.
Thank you.
And I appreciate it. We all appreciate it. We all appreciate it because there is the need for what is going on here.
Yep.
And it's a need for us to unearth our Black stories.
That's right.
Because for so long it's been covered up.
That's right.
And I think the most valuable stories and the most courageous people in this country were the Black people who had a huge, humongous headwinds in front of them and succeeded anyway.
Anyway. So hold on, before you go any further though, tell us your name.
All right. Okay. My name is Herman Johnson Jr. And I stick with the junior because my father, 93 years old, is still around. Herman Johnson Sr.
I love it.
And but I'm from Mound Bayou, Mississippi. And for those of you who do not or have not heard of Mound Bayou is one of the oldest all-Black founded communities in the country.
That's right. And
the history of the town is an amazing history of how Mound Bayou was founded. And right now, there is a museum here that I am one of the co-founders. My brother and I started a museum to capture the history of this town. It's too valuable to not take this history and put it in a format where people can come and learn about it.
Okay, now be no disrespect. Let me stop you there because I got to get just a couple questions on you. So sure. You're from that town. How did your folks get there?
Well, my mother was born here, and my mother is her grandmother was one of the original settlers. Matter of fact, we come from a line of 4 of the original settlers that came to the town were my ancestors. My grandfather, Sam Thompson, his mother and father were one of the original settlers, and also my grandmother, his wife, their parents were one of the original settlers also.
Well, where is it?
It's in the Mississippi Delta, right in the middle of the Mississippi Delta. We're 100 miles south of Memphis on Highway 61, the Blues Highway, 100 miles north of Vicksburg, and we're 18 miles east of the Mississippi River.
All right, let's keep going on that. When you said Mississippi Delta, what does that mean?
The Mississippi Delta is it's an alluvial plain that was the reason it became a delta, if that back whenever, I don't know, hundreds of years or thousands of years, when the river used to overflow its banks, the levees, and it would overflow, and that overflow kept depositing that silt that from the river into this area. It made another whole big plain, a whole big a huge lake, as you might say.
Okay.
And when they rectified it, they put levees there, but that area became the delta, and it's probably some of the richest land in the country right now because of the fact that all of that all that land mass, all that that silt from that river came down and just settled here in this area.
Okay, hold
And
on. No, you got another word I gotta ask. What is silt? What do you mean by that?
silt is that it's that dirt at the bottom of the river.
Okay.
And so you had really, really rich land that's here.
Okay.
And that's why in the Mississippi Delta we had some of the, you have I think this Mississippi Delta and California Delta is probably the richest land in the country, but I think here is better.
Now, when you say riches, you mean in terms of growing crops and the nutrients in the soil?
Exactly. The soil is so rich that the crops come out better here. I'm not a agricultural.
Yeah.
I can't go too much further than what I'm saying now.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying? That it had this the rich land here in this area.
Okay, let me do this one then. Where's the plantation at in your family?
The plantation?
Yeah.
Well, the plantation that my ancestors came from was in Vicksburg, south of Vicksburg. That plantation was called Davis Bend. And unless you got more questions, I can just tell you that story.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. That the story of that plantation on Davis Bend, Davis meaning Joseph Davis, who was it was two Davises, Joseph Davis, the elder brother, and his younger brother, Jefferson Davis. Now, some people will know who Jefferson Davis was.
Right.
He was the president of the Confederacy.
Right.
And on that plantation, it was, I can't tell you exactly how many acres it was, but Joseph Davis owned it. His younger brother, Jefferson Davis, had 4,000 acres there that he could manage and had a plantation of his own, but it was actually owned by Joseph. So Joseph Davis was following a guy named Robert Owen back in the day. And Robert Owen was teaching a utopian society. And he was treating the enslaved people on this plantation differently because of that. And so he tried to implement a utopian society, whatever he could do on that plantation. And so what he did was those men and women who are enslaved there were not only allowed to read and write, but they were encouraged to read and write. And they owned businesses on the plantations as enslaved men and women.
Okay, let me stop you there. I mean, no disrespect, but I want to stay on you just a tad longer. Sure. So your folks is on this plantation, they leave and go to Mound Bayou.
Yeah, but it would serve a better purpose if I told you the rest of that part of this part of the story.
Go ahead.
Because that's a really good story.
Okay.
And so while they're on that plantation, the men and women there are, like I said, they had businesses. They had a store on that plantation. And when the steamships would come up and down the river, they would stop and shop at that store. And they would get their products coming in, and then they would sell it retail going out. And even though some of the steamship captains protested, they still said, you know what, we buy our products from these enslaved people. So this is the best we got. So anyway, the main enslaved man there was a man named Ben Montgomery. He was bought out of Lowndes County, Virginia, brought down to Mississippi. And he was the main guy, like the head enslaved guy there. And Ben Montgomery, Joseph Davis was a self-taught lawyer. He had his library right there. And so Ben Montgomery had access to that, and he taught himself to be a lawyer also. Now, of course, he couldn't become a lawyer, but he had the same education as his quote unquote master. And so in any case, when the Union Army, because now we're talking about it toward the end of the war, when the Union Army came down and they were burning plantations from the north coming down to the south, and they were seizing Vicksburg and things like that. It was wisdom for Joseph Davis to turn and sell, because now after the war is over, these people are emancipated. He turns around and he sells the plantation to the previously enslaved men and women. He sells it to them for $300,000, which is the equivalent in today's money of $10 million. He sells it to them, and these guys start running that plantation, and they outwork every other plantation in the area. They become the third largest planter in the country, right out of slavery.
Planting what?
And planting whatever they planted, mostly cotton.
Mostly cotton, okay.
And they outworked all, like I said, they outworked all their neighbors. And back in that day, the most wealthiest people in the country were the cotton planters. These guys are the third largest. They were so ingenious that they got the highest grade of cotton in the world on that plantation. They're going to Cincinnati, they're going to St. Louis, and they're winning awards for their cotton. But what ended up happening, Joseph Davis dies, Ben Montgomery dies, and his son, I.T. Montgomery, takes over. But Jefferson Davis, who now is, the war is over, he had been exiled somewhere, but he comes back and he ends up taking that plantation over. Use the court system, he takes it back from Montgomery. So Montgomery needs to find another venture. So he goes to Kansas, and a bunch of people went with him that didn't stay in Kansas. He's come back to Mississippi, and now it's Reconstruction. There are some Black elected officials there. And there was a guy named Jim Hill, who was the Secretary of State. He runs into Jim Hill. Jim Hill tells him, go over to the Delta, because they're building a railroad from Chicago to New Orleans. Those people got 1 million acres. Go over there and talk to them. He goes over and he talks to those people, and they make a deal to buy 840 acres of land, a swamp land. And after they bought this swamp land, these guys began, the Montgomerys, I.T. Montgomery now, start clearing this swamp land, cutting down the trees, cutting down, they're running all these animals off, and they're sleeping on the train. They don't have houses or anything. They're sleeping on the train to Memphis, and then they get off the train in Memphis and sleep on the train back. Once they get back, the conductor asks them where they want to get off, and they tell them, let us off where the Indian Mound converges with the two bayous. After they do that every day, the town, they come up with the name of Mound Bayou. And they start cultivating that land again, and they get the highest grade of cotton in the world again, here in Mound Bayou. And from that point on, because if you got cotton ginned in Mound Bayou, you got a higher price, then other farmers from outside of our community and outside of the area would bring their cotton here to Mound Bayou to get the Mound Bayou label so they can get a higher price. And then cotton ginning became a business. And so as a result, we ended up with 6 cotton gins, which most cities will only have one the size of Mound Bayou, maybe 2. And ginning became a business. And because Mound Bayou is in the Mississippi Delta and in Mississippi, which is probably the most inhospitable racist state in the country,
right?
Then Mound Bayou becomes a sanctuary city. It also becomes a place where people can come from other places and just take a breath, because everywhere else is racist.
How big is Mound Bayou?
At right now, it's about 1,300 to 1,500 people now. But at its heyday, it was up to 8,000 people in town, 8,500 in town. And I don't know how many people around town. I mean, outside of the city limits that call themselves Mound Bayou. We had 37,000 acres surrounding Mound Bayou. And, all of that, a lot of that has been chipped away over the years because of the racist policies of the federal government and the state government and other policies. And then things have been chipped away. I don't know how much they own right now, but The population has changed, and Mound Bayou was a place that Black people would come for respite in a segregated society. Mound Bayou really gave up a lot of its notoriety and a lot of its business acumen because of segregation. When segregation became to integration, then there was no need for Black people to have to come to Mound Bayou to shop. They didn't have to come to Mound Bayou for a resort. They could go to the Walgreen or the Walmart or the other places in their own town when they were prohibited before, now, and they would have to come to Mound Bayou and spend their dollars. There were more millionaires or more wealthy people in Mound Bayou at one time than anywhere else in the state of Mississippi, because of the fact there was a lot of dollars coming into this town.
Okay, I love it. Okay, let's go back here. How do you spell Mound Bayou?
M-O-U-N-D, Mound. It was an Indian mound, and Bayou, B-A-Y-O-U.
Okay.
Which is kind of like French for creek, ditch.
Okay.
Was there something about that land that the racists could not come without being spotted to just burn it down, to mess with the Black people? Was there like trees around it or something that they did to protect themselves?
The same thing that made slavery work was the fact that if you were a slave and you walked and you didn't have your papers in a white society, you were noted because of your skin color. Well, when white people came into Mound Bayou because of their skin color, they're noted, because you couldn't just walk around in Mound Bayou because Mound Bayou is a Black town. Now, there is a story about the fact that they did come into town at one point to burn it down, just like they did Rosewood, just like they did also. Yeah. They did come in, and people, it just so happened that the word got out and people in Mound Bayou knew about it before they came, but they rode in here and people in Mound Bayou were ready for them. They would pitch themselves on top of the rooftops. And there's a 2-story bank building that we have in town. And there was a guy up there on that bank building with a Gatling gun. And so when they rolled up in town, they had turned the lights out in the whole city. And they rolled up in town, and all that dude had to do on that bank building was let that Gatling gun go one time. And when they heard that Gatling gun, they turned tail and ran. They never came back.
A Gatling gun is a gun that shoots real fast, and
it's like a large machine gun.
Yeah, okay, that's what I kind of thought you were gonna say.
Yeah.
Now, in the early days, when let's go back here because maybe a couple questions. When the guy had the land, the white guy, he did this for the Black people, and then the Black people took over. The guy who took over didn't treat the other Black people like slaves, and he paid them a wage to do what they did. Is that right?
No, I don't understand that question. Tell me.
Okay, when the Black guy took over, the Montgomery guy
took over from where?
Took over when the white guy sold him the land. When he got the land, because they left during the Civil War.
He sold him the plantation.
When he sold him the plantation, and now Black people are running this plantation.
Right.
He's paying them a wage. He ain't treating them unfairly.
No, he sold them the plantation.
But one guy's the head guy, so all the other people got to do the laborer work.
Well, the head guy, the Montgomery, was the head guy who actually bought it. What he did, I see your question now. Right. What he did was the other people there, he made them tenants. And so they divided up their portions of the land of that plantation. And then they worked their parts, and then they paid him rent, and then he paid
there you go. There you go. Okay.
Yeah, I get
there you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Now in that thing, they had a store and schools and churches and everything.
You mean on the plantation?
On the plantation.
Yeah, they did. They actually had a government on the plantation while they were enslaved. They had a government, and they was governing themselves. They had court system. They had the whole thing set up. And matter of fact, to go back on that story a little bit, when they were still enslaved, Ben Montgomery, the head Black guy,
right,
wanted his children to be educated. So he went and got a white tutor out of Vicksburg to come onto the plantation and tutor his kids.
Ooh, I
Well,
love
the
it.
Davises thought that that was a good idea. And the Davises brought their white kids to that same tutor so they can tutor them together. And the next thing you know, the other black kids on the plantation, other black folks on the plantation brought their kids. The other white folks on the plantation brought their kids. Now you have 50 people, 50 kids there, all mixed, being tutored by this one white tutor.
I love
And
it.
the people in Vicksburg got wind of it. And, you know, of course, they had a problem with it and they ended up having to shut it down. But I say that was probably, I don't have proof of this,
Yeah.
but I say it was probably the first integrated school in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah, sure.
I don't see why it wouldn't be.
I wouldn't either. Okay, how
Yeah.
about this? Now, with all this going on, is the Montgomery guy dark skin or light skin?
Dark.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Because the only reason why I say that is because I'm wondering if he got a little bit of favor because he had one of his parents was the white guy, and that's not the case.
No. Ben Montgomery was actually brought as a slave out of Lowndes County, Virginia.
Okay, yeah, you said that right. Now, was there intermingling between the blacks and whites, where there were, you know, some kids grown out of that and that kind of thing?
Jefferson Davis. I can't tell you about all of it, but I can tell you because I have a friend of mine's, who I got this story from.
Yeah.
Jefferson Davis did intermingle.
I'm sure he did.
And his kids went to when all of this was over and the plantation was, you know, done.
Yeah.
His kids went to West Point, and some of them are Strongs. That was funny when you kept saying Strong.
Yeah.
Some of them are Strongs, and then there's another name I don't remember right now. But they went there and they had a lot of success because one of my friends, his name is Strong. His last name is Strong.
Oh, really?
He's from West Point, and he could trace his lineage back to that same plantation. And his, you know, some of his ancestors, one of them is Jefferson Davis.
Now, there is a dynamic here between the two brothers. One is a nice guy, let's call it, even though he's in the slavery. Let's give him some niceties.
Yeah.
Because he allowed the slaves to do what they did. The other one became the head of how we don't like slavery.
Exactly.
What was the dynamic between them two?
I don't have that history. I didn't, because I'm only concentrating on the black part of it. There is that history. And matter of fact, one of the books that was written about that whole situation with the enslaved people was a lady named Janet Sharp Herman. She wrote a book called The Pursuit of a Dream. And she went there to Vicksburg to actually write about Jefferson Davis. But as she's doing her research, she discovers this story about these people who were enslaved there.
Right. And
so she changed her focus from Jefferson Davis to write about the Montgomerys and to write about all these the fantastic things that these enslaved people had done. You know, now she gets into a little bit, but my concentration has been about Mound Bayou.
Let me ask you, so when Jefferson Davis takes it over, he takes it over, he's got to get these black people to be sharecroppers to do the land.
When Jefferson did, or you mean?
Yes.
No, the Jefferson Davis.
When he comes back and takes the land from the black people.
He takes the whole thing from the black people.
But he got to get sharecroppers to help till.
I don't know what he did after that. All I know is that the Montgomerys had to go. I don't know what he did. All he wanted to me was and his the disaster that happened because of him was that he was using the court system, which is designed for white people, to take it back from the black guy. He reneged on a contract. And the contract was that they bought it. I mean, the Montgomerys bought it. Well, Jefferson his point was, well, I'm white, I'm gonna take it back.
I got you.
You know, so the contract didn't mean anything to them.
Are there other plantations in Mound Bayou?
There was no plantation in Mound Bayou. Mound Bayou was started
I got you.
as a black city.
Okay. How far is Mound Bayou from the plantation?
110 miles.
That's a
Mound
distance.
Bayou really had nothing to do with the plantation.
I got you. I got you. I got you.
Mound Bayou was a place. Mound Bayou was a dream of the people who were on the plant, who came from the plantation.
I got you.
Their dream was to start a Black city, a place where Black people could live and prosper in their own without having the white people looking over them and being oppressed.
I got you.
And it was actually, you can look at the reasons that America was founded. The same reasons that they say that America was founded.
Yeah.
It's the same reason that Mound Bayou was founded.
Who is in Mound Bayou? What's the main street? Where all the businesses was on and that kind of thing. As you remember growing up.
The main street was the Highway 61. Edwards is Edwards, and then you have the other main street was West Main, which is the old Highway 61, and then the newer Highway 61 is Edwards.
When you grew up, where did you hang out at? I mean, where did you play and all that in Mound Bayou?
Well, all over town. It's an all-Black town, so we weren't afraid to go anywhere.
Oh, I got you. I love it.
Yeah, and I grew up, we call it Uptown, where all the businesses were.
Okay.
And everybody was there. We had a lot of businesses at that time. It was still a lot of businesses going on as I grew up.
Yeah.
We had a hospital. We had the first hospital. We had the first hospital that Blacks could go through in the front door in North Mississippi. That was started in 1942. We had a hospital up there. And then we had a lot of different businesses in Mound Bayou. So I would get on my bicycle and ride all the way around town. My grandfather had one of the cotton gins in town, so I would work down there sometimes. My uncle had a service station. I would go there. One of my other uncles was a postmaster, so I hung out there sometimes. My father was the vice mayor for over 30 years. So it was a town that was, there was no inhibitions,
So you didn't see white people that often in your town?
Not in town. You can go to the next town. It's not that you don't see white people, you're in Mississippi. I got you. But in town, in Mound Bayou, not that often, because there was no overlords here of white people in Mound Bayou.
Yeah, so there was no black and white fountains and all that kind of stuff, not in that town.
We did have a black and white fountain in town. Let me tell you about that. It's kind of funny. Yeah. Because at the railroad track, at the railroad station, which everybody came through, in the Mound Bayou Railroad waiting room, we did have a black fountain and a white fountain, but the black fountain was inside and the white fountain was outside.
I love it. No kidding.
Yes, sir. So that was the only difference because we were black.
And in Mound Bayou, do people know this story? You said some books have come out and we're doing what we're doing, and I just heard about it. But this is probably one of the most inspiring stories of slavery, so to speak.
I think so. I'm glad you say so, because I think so. And let me tell you a little thing about you might want to accentuate on Mound Bayou. When the Emmett Till story happened, which is in Money, Mississippi, Mound Bayou was about 35 to 40 miles from Money, Mississippi, and Sumner in that area.
Okay.
And so one of the more, I would say, outspoken civil rights advocates was in Mound Bayou. I call him the godfather of the civil rights movement.
Okay.
His name was T.R.M. Howard. And T.R.M. Howard was the chief surgeon of the hospital, the Taborian Hospital in Mound Bayou. And he was a businessman. He was a big businessman. He was a flashy guy. and he was a big game hunter, and he was known nationwide, you know. And so he had, like I said, he had several businesses, but he opened the first Olympic-sized swimming pool for Black people in the state of Mississippi, with a high diving board and a low diving board, and he had a zoo. And which I think the zoo that we had in Mound Bayou, it might have been the first zoo in the state.
Yeah, sure.
And he had an insurance company. He also opened up another clinic across the street from the hospital. In that insurance company, he employed a guy named Mega Evers. And he mentored Mega Evers because, like I said, he was a vicious civil rights leader. He also mentored Fannie Lou Hamer, Amzie Moore, Jesse Jackson, Martin Luther King. And he was responsible because after the Emmett Till case had happened, they wanted him to go speak over at Martin Luther King's church. So he did. He went over there and
is that Montgomery, or that's not Atlanta?
I believe it was Montgomery.
Montgomery, okay.
But don't quote me on that. I think it was Montgomery.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm almost sure it was Montgomery, because what was the bus boycott? It was Montgomery, right?
That's Montgomery, yeah.
Okay, so, and the reason I say that is because in that audience that day that he spoke was Rosa Parks. 4 days later is when she sat down on that bus, and they asked her why, and she said it was because she had heard about Emmett Till. Well, he had been over, T.R.M. Howard had been over there talking about Emmett Till. He spoke about Emmett Till at Martin Luther King's church. And so she heard his passion, and she sat down on that bus. And so that's why I called him the godfather of the civil rights movement, because he mentored Medgar Evers until Medgar Evers went out and took over the NAACP.
I got you.
Became the field director. But and T.R.M. Howard was having a public feud with J. Edgar Hoover at that time. But in the Emmett Till case, when Mamie Till came down from Chicago to go to the trial in Money, there was nowhere in the Mississippi Delta that she could have stayed and been safe. Nowhere. Just like Emmett Till wasn't safe over in Money or in where he stayed, she wouldn't have been safe. So she stayed here in Mound Bayou because this is the only place she could have been safe. And she stayed at T.R.M. Howard's house. If you see any movies on that story, they will talk about the T.R.M. Howard house because he had built, and now if there was any plantation in town, it would have been his, because he built this big, beautiful house, and he had smaller houses along there for his service, for the people who work for him. I wouldn't call them servants because he really treated them fairly. He really treated them great, because my father's first job out of college was for T.R.M. Howard. And he tells about how T.R.M. Howard treated the people that worked for him. And he treated them very, very nicely.
I love it.
And so he was the one who was the chief investigator. Well, he was the one doing all the investigation, a lot of the investigations on that trial. And you will see that Mamie Till was protected by him. He had armed guards around his house, and he had armed guards taking her to and from the trial from Mound Bayou and to and back and from Sumner, Mississippi, where they were having the trial. And so not only her, but the people from Jet Magazine and the Philadelphia Inquirer and all these other Black newspaper. I think Charles Diggs from the congressman from Michigan was also. They all stayed at T.R.M. Howard's house. And so you will see that. And there's another Till movie coming out in October.
Oh.
That they took a city in Georgia and recreated it to be Mound Bayou to shoot that part of the film about Mound Bayou's role in that story.
Oh, I love it. Is there a monument to him in Mound Bayou?
T.R.M. Howard, well,
Yes.
We did have a highway named after him. The main highway is named after him. My brother headed that effort to name the highway after him. That is, and there are some other efforts going on now to do more monuments toward him.
Yeah.
Because we are now uncovering and putting some momentum behind elevating the history of the town.
Was it a part of, for lack of a better word, the chitlin circuit, where the artists would come down and perform at a particular club in Mound Bayou or something like that?
One thing about Mound Bayou is that in its earliest form, these people were dedicated to succeeding. And they did not allow in the beginning of Mound Bayou, they did not allow saloons. They did not allow what they call anything that would take them off their eyes off the prize. Matter of fact, there was a story about my great great grandmother, who was one of the early settlers, that she initiated an effort just because she thought that, like I said, they didn't want to take their eyes off the prize. So what she did was went out and found out all the people who were shacking up in town and told them that they were all to come to town, to the center of town one day, because there was going to be a huge wedding. And if everybody didn't get married that was shacking up, you had to leave town because they weren't having.
Really?
They did not have, we had a jail in town that they ended up having to tear down because there was no crime.
Really?
Yes, sir. Because these people were dedicated to succeeding. Just imagine, they had been slaves. They had been educated on that plantation. So they come here educated. And they got a education principle here that they started here. And they are all about succeeding. They're not about any kind of bull crap. So
I got you.
So as far as I answered the question that way, because when you say did they have the chitlin circuit and that type of thing, those things were regulated to a town that was 2 miles from us, which is also an all-black town, but it was called Winstonville. And there was a huge club in Winstonville that anybody could go to. But Mound Bayou did not have that. We didn't have a lot of artists. We didn't have a lot of oppression. Even though the blues was all around us, a lot of the blues, even though there was some blues artists that came from Mound Bayou, but a lot of the blues did not come out of Mound Bayou because there was not that oppression that brought on the blues here in out there, here in Mound Bayou. There was success and prosperity in Mound Bayou.
Well, okay, on a good one there. I love this. Is there everybody went to church on Sunday kind of thing? Church service, you hear the bell ringing, what have you?
Well, I guess so in the early days.
Yeah.
A lot of things drifted out of that way. Yeah. I know when I was coming up, we had to go to church. I had to go to church, and my family we did.
Yeah.
And my mother family was here, and we were all part of a large, she had a lot of sisters and brothers.
Yeah.
And so we were all kept in line by the whole gang of them. So we couldn't do a whole lot wrong, because everybody was our parent,
I love it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love it.
I think a lot of that has drifted away now, but my upbringing, there was still that going on.
I love it. What do y'all celebrate a particular type of Emancipation Day other than Juneteenth? You know what I'm saying?
We celebrate Founders Day. Matter of fact, our Founders Day on July 12th is not just July 12th. Our Founders Day usually lasts 3 or 4 days. We have a lot of events over that time. We have a civic club, which goes back over 100-something years, our civic club. And they manage those celebrations. Like this past year, just a month ago, I think it was over like 4 days. We had different events, on those on Civic Club, and we've had a lot of national people come down for our Founders Day. We've had Al Sharpton,
oh really?
Al Washington. We had Farrakhan, and then we had I can't call the guy's name, but over the National Business League was just here. And then so every year, and the year before that, we had the lady who was over the Kellogg Foundation. So we've had a lot of notable people come down for those events.
And when you say founders, that's founders of Mount Bayou. Mount
Yeah,
Bayou.
I.T. Montgomery
Yeah.
and his brother Benjamin Green. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, not his brother, his cousin Benjamin Green are noted to be the founders.
Is there a particular diet, that you all eat? Y'all eat a lot of okra or something because of the land, and you know what I mean? Or it's a lot of seafood, any of that kind of thing?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot more. I think because we're in the Delta, we have a lot more vegetables available.
Oh, is that right?
I would think so,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I don't think our diet is any different than anywhere else.
Yeah.
You know, it just ends up when we have a lot more availability, and then a lot of people, some people here have gardens and things like
Yeah.
that because you have that available.
Yeah.
Whereas you don't have that much in the city. Some people do, but we
Yeah.
have more land and access to it here. You know, and then Alcorn University has an extension here, an agricultural extension. And they do a lot of research and development with farmers and things like that here. Now, Alcorn is 200 miles away from here, but they have an extension here.
That's the closest HBCU?
The closest HBCU is Mississippi Valley State, which is about an hour from here.
Where did you said your father went to college. Where did he go?
Southern University.
And that's
And
smooth.
Southern's Baton Rouge.
Yeah. And now, is there a question that I have not asked you? Because we've covered a lot. Is there something, I don't know?
Well, I think you've asked a lot of good questions.
Yeah.
But I want everybody to know about the museum.
Right. That's what we want to get to. That's
we
right.
want to get to the museum. The museum is the Mound Bayou. Our website is moundbayou.museum.com, and we are in a constant revelations of the history, because when you live in America, and you live in America,
Yeah.
you understand that our history has been dampened down and been fought against because they really don't want us to know our history.
Yeah.
And which means that we really have to do a lot of work and press to get our history known. And I think Mound Bayou is a very, very important history to be known.
Yes.
And just like, and I say this to a lot of people, just as if a lot of people, now maybe you and other enlightened people have known this, but a lot of people in the country never heard of Black Wall Street. They never heard of Greenwood, Tulsa, Black Wall Street.
Sure.
They didn't hear of it, 2-3 years ago, is what I'm trying to say.
Sure.
A lot of people at the same time didn't hear about Juneteenth. But right now, everybody knows about Tulsa Black Wall Street.
Sure.
And Tulsa and Juneteenth is not only known, but it's a national holiday.
That's right.
Black people will find out about Mound Bayou because our history is that valuable. And I say the same way they know about Tulsa Black Wall Street, they will discover Mound Bayou.
I love it.
They will discover that history because I think it's very valuable for us to know that history, because we have a history of success.
That's right.
From the plantation until now.
That's right. I love it.
And our story, fortunately, is not marred by a lot of brutality. That usually is a story of enslaved men and women, that a lot of us don't want to feel that pain, of that brutality and go through that in order to discover that story. But here's a story of success and prosperity, and a story where we always held our head up high. And I think people should know about that. And I think people will know about it.
Yeah, well, that's my charge, to help get it out there. Are there famous people from Mound Bayou?
Well, Katie Hall, who was the one who initiated she actually wrote the bill for the Martin Luther King holiday. She was a congresswoman in Indiana at the time, but she's from Mound Bayou.
Oh, I love it. Okay.
That's one I can think of right away.
So it's not like an athlete comes to mind or something like that.
Well, we had Kevin Henry, who was a football player.
Okay.
For the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'll tell you something, and I can't back this up. I'm just say this but I can't back it up. But at the same time that Aretha Franklin's father had a church here in Mound Bayou, just outside of town.
Really?
At the same time that she was born, he had a church here in Mound Bayou. But she has always said that she was born in Memphis. And then I even heard somebody say the other day that she was born in Detroit. But there are people here locally who are trying to, and black and white, who are trying to find the records because we all believe that she was born here and just not said it. Because,
really?
It could be. And I know a lady, there's a lady, and I think she's still living, who babysat her. But it's interesting that her father had a church, C.L. Franklin, right outside of Mound Bayou at the same time that she was born.
I love it.
There was, the black hospital here that most of the people in this area were in the Mississippi Delta were born at this hospital. It's logical, that she would have been here in this area. I don't know that for sure though.
Yeah. Well, we're
gonna
go with
no proof of that.
Yeah, we're gonna go with it.
Now let me tell you a couple of other interesting things here. At the beginning of Mound Bayou, toward the early days of Mound Bayou, we had a bakery here, and Booker T. Washington would visit Mound Bayou. It was one of the towns that he was very, very interested in, and even he wrote in his book. He wrote it in his book to show you how far this goes back. That Wonder Bread was founded in Mound Bayou, at the bakery in Mound Bayou. Now, of course, we don't get credit for it, so we're going to have to go find evidence of that. And then we had a bottling company in Mound Bayou that got sold and went to some other places. And I think it ended up in Clarksdale. We have to research this also. But there is talk from our ancestors. So the only proof that we have of what I'm getting ready to say is that several of our ancestors have said this, that Coca-Cola was founded here.
Really?
Now, we don't have, like I said, we don't have any evidence of that. We don't have any proof that this is written. So we're trying to get some people to go out and research this and find out the evidence of that, But Mound Bayou is noted. Now, there's proof of this, what I'm about to say, that we had the first black manufacturing venture in the country that was started here in Mound Bayou, which is a cottonseed oil mill. And there was 68 other cottonseed oil mills in the state of Mississippi when they founded the one in Mound Bayou. And when they founded the one here, the whole country, the white part of the country, conspired to stop this one in Mound Bayou. And especially those people in Mississippi boycotted the cottonseed oil mill here and caused the other people in the nation and internationally to boycott the cottonseed oil mill here, which of course had to go out of business since they couldn't sell the oil that came out of here.
Because this might be a crazy question, but because you all are so into the cotton gins, is cotton easy to find there? Is there stores that weave it that even to today, that kind of thing, that if I was to come down, I could get some special cotton that is the smoothest cotton ever? Or I don't know.
Well, the cotton, I think even when I was growing up, cotton, the prices of the market for cotton changed. And so in Mississippi, there's not nearly the amount of cotton that was used to be produced here. There's not nearly that amount here now.
Oh, is that right? Okay.
And especially around Mound Bayou, you could drive around Mound Bayou and not even see a cotton crop. Now you can go north of here, in Coahoma County, which is the county north of Bolivar, and there are some cotton crops there. You go to Tunica, there are cotton crops there, but not nearly as much. The acreage that the cotton is produced on is a lot less now.
Oh, have you ever picked cotton?
Once. I was fortunate, actually twice. I was fortunate because my grandfather had a cotton gin. So when a lot of my friends would go pick cotton to make extra money, I had other ways to make extra money. I can go to the cotton gin, I could go to my uncle's service station, and I had a jet magazine route and I had a paper route. So I had other avenues to make money. When my friends didn't, they had to go pick cotton if they wanted to make.
I got you. You know everybody in Mound Bayou pretty much.
My brother does. My brother was a former mayor, and I think that he probably knows everybody. But I just got back 2 years ago.
Okay.
I was gone for 43 years. So I missed 2 generations of people growing up. A lot of people I don't know.
Sure. It's home for you. You love it. It's home for you. You love Mound Bayou.
I've been trying to get back here since I went to California.
It's not too small for you?
It is. It takes some getting used to. When I got here, it was COVID, which exacerbated the situation where you couldn't, even though it was small, you couldn't even go anywhere, even though it was small. And, but, I was just dedicated to coming back. And so I guess that got me through. But yeah, it's small. It is small, and that takes some getting used to. But there are some things that we're working on changing. And we are working now. We're working with a hotel developer, and we're going to develop a hotel here.
I love it.
And there are some other sites, historical sites that we are developing. Also, our historical home, the I.T. Montgomery home, is still standing, and it was awarded $2.8 million for restoration because it was one of the top endangered homes in the country, actually. And so Congressman Thompson got $2.8 million last year. So pretty soon they'll be restoring that home. My cousin owns one of the other historical homes, and he's already in the midst of restoring that. And then there's some other historical sites in town that we're going to restore, and we're going to turn this town into a historical landmark that people can visit from around the world and around the country.
I love it.
And that's what we're aiming at. We're going to turn my family owns a cotton gin that's not in use now. There's no equipment in there at all. But I'm talking to the National Park Foundation, National Park Service, and they've told me what to do, what I need to do in order to get a grant. But I need to get a historical designation for that place, and I'm going to turn that into a historical, put it on the historical register and make it another historical site. And so we're going to bring in tourism. That's our aim, to restore tourism to this area, or bring in tourism to this area, because we have a very, very valuable history.
Yes, you do.
That the world needs to know.
Yes, you do.
And we're going to bring some attention to it. The country needs to know it.
You fly into Memphis and then drive down. Is that mostly how you might get there?
Yeah, that you could fly into Memphis, which is probably the best way to do it now. Another way to do it is to go to Greenville, which is a little closer. Sometimes it takes you another hop and a skip to get to Greenville. And then
Greenville, South Carolina,
Greenville, Mississippi.
Greenville, Mississippi. They got an airport there.
And they have a small airport there, which is a regional airport, and you can go there from Dallas or Atlanta. You can get there from places like that.
Okay.
And then also there is some people go to Jackson. You can fly into Jackson, Medgar Evers Airport there, and I even sometimes drive down to New Orleans, even though that's 4 or 5 hours away. To fly out, but I wouldn't recommend anybody else do that. But but
I guess last couple of questions. We just because they're coming and you doing so well. It's hot there, right?
It's Mississippi. Yeah, it's hot. It's hot. It's hot here.
You got fireflies all the time?
No, we don't have fireflies.
Oh, you don't?
No, we don't. We have mosquitoes. We have big, large mosquitoes with AK-47s and army boots and helmets.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't have alligators?
No, we inland. We 18 miles inland. I mean, I have seen a couple of years ago, somebody did spot an alligator about 20 miles from here.
Okay.
But that's not something normal because
that's not something normal. Okay.
No, we're flat land and we're so far from the river that an alligator would really have to traverse a lot just to get over here.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, you're too
You got
far
to traverse
away.
a lot of land, so we don't have enough. We don't have enough for him to get here.
Yeah, right. I got you. I got you. Thank you for coming on the show. Give me the name of the museum again and the website.
It's the Mound Bayou Museum, and the website is easy. It's moundbayou.museum.com.
Are you all in a building now? You got your own permanent structure? And
yeah, we're in a building. Our high school was closed. And let me tell you a little bit about high school. You got another minute?
Yeah, we got as much time as you want. Yeah, no question.
Okay, our high school was rated one of the top 100 high schools in the country.
Really?
For a bunch of years by U.S. News and World Report. And because we had been discriminated against by the state, every school district in the state was financed. One of the financing agents of the school districts in the state was a 16th section land. Every school district except ours. And so we had less money per capita than any other school district in the state, but we did more with it than any other school district in the state. And we are rated, so there have been theses written on why our kids that came out of our high school we had a much higher graduation rate and much higher rate of people succeeding out of our high school than other school districts, and people were wondering why. Well, we had a tradition of education in this city, and we had a tradition of excellence in education in the city, and that was one of the reasons. So, but because of I think partly because of racism, and partly, this is just my estimation because I wasn't here, but partly because of racism and partly because of the decline in population, they looked at a reason to consolidate the district. And so as a result, they sent our kids to the district. They consolidated our district with Shelby, which is 4 miles away, but it sent our kids to that high school there, and they closed the high school here in Mound Bayou. In Mound Bayou, in this high school, we had an outbuilding next to the high school, which was our music building, choir, and our band room. And that is the building that we asked the school district to give us to use as a museum. And that's the building that we use as a museum. It's on the campus of John F. Kennedy High School, but that's the building that we were able to use. And that's the building I'm in right now.
I love it. I love it. Well, hey, thank you so very much for sharing this with me and the viewers as it will be. It's an incredible story.
Well, thank you.
It's an incredible story.
Allowing me to be
how about this? You got to be happy that that's in your family.
Of course. Of course. I thank God every day. Yes, I am.
Because how about this? Your ancestors were smart enough to take part in that, because some other people didn't go to Mound Bayou. They left Mississippi altogether, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, most of these ancestors came up from the plantation. Most of the original settlers came up from the plantation, but the others that came up from the others that were brought up as original settlers were vetted. They didn't allow. You remember I told you they wouldn't allow they only allow industrious people who were forward thinking and forward looking to be one of the original settlers of this town. So if you were a Rudy Poot, as I say sometimes,
yeah, I like it.
If you was a Rudy Poot, you couldn't come to Mound Bayou in the beginning.
Have white people moved there now?
Yeah, there are 4 white people here. I can name them.
It's not like gentrification is trying to seep in and that kind of thing because it's such a nice place.
No.
Okay.
But the county of Bolivar is about 60 to 70% Black. I think the number is about 67% Black. And so the elected officials in the county are mostly Black. The sheriff is Black.
I love it.
You know, all the
Love it.
chancery, the judges and chancery clerks, everything
I love
is
it.
Black, you know. And so all our city officials are Black and the county officials are Black. Mostly the Delta is Black. Most of the Delta is mostly Black. Now there are white people, and there's a town 2 miles from here called Marigold, 2 miles to the south, and there are a lot of white people that are there.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, there was a plantation that was there early on. Even when Mound Bayou was existing, there was a plantation there, you know, 2 miles away, 3 miles away. So
yeah, I love
but
it.
the situation was totally different.
Yeah. Well, hey, thank you for coming on the show.
I appreciate it.
Tremendous, everybody. I told you you're gonna like this. This is what we do here, Strong Inspiration. So I don't know why you won't hit the subscribe button, but I'm gonna keep giving it to you until you do. It's free. It don't ask no information. It just say I subscribe. And hit the like button on this video. Give some comments and send some money down to the museum. It's gonna be in the description. You know, they always want money. Send some money down there. Let's go down there June of next year. That might be a good time. It's gonna be hot, but that's all right. Or go in the fall, but go and visit and see them sites. And he'll take you on the tour personally, I'm sure, or give you to the right person.
Yeah.
And you get firsthand knowledge. And so I say this to you, my brother, and I mean this with all sincerity. And I really mean it. I want you to stay strong, stay safe, stay on your grind. I love that you become who you have. They proud of you. Everybody knows this. And your family and all them other people in that town. That's beautiful. There's something to be learned and heard. So with that, I'll say bye-bye, we out. Peace.
Thank you.